Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to go vintage. This is the next in the Index Card a Day Challenge 2023. And the prompt that I'm following is postage stamp. Now it's supposed to be week 6, but nothing here is inspiring me. I could do metallic, but I just really have no idea, so I'm just gonna throw that away for now. And I'm going back to week 3 and the prompt postage stamp. So I grabbed this is a card base, and I had previously put a napkin on it, didn't really like it, had given it a wash of white paint. I'm going to knock that pattern further back with a cover of, this is unbleached titanium and a mixture of white gesso, but I'm going to put it in this little pocket to keep all the other surfaces clean. I've got some finished pages and I don't want to get paint on them. So I'm putting a good coat of this unbleached titanium and white gesso on. It's kind of mottled. Now, once that's dry, I want to make this look vintage. And because I had put the napkin on there, there is some wonderful texture. And by lightly rubbing, this is brown paint, on a Ranger blending foam, and I'm just rubbing it on top, and this is bringing out the texture and it's making it grungy and vintage. Look at that. That is just completely vintage. And I'm just rubbing little by little, very light pressure, skimming across the top. Then I'm going to edge the sides again with that brown, because I know I want this to have a vintage feel. That's what the picture in my head is. I'm going to make a vintage postage stamp, basically. Now I'm adding a little bit of black right on the same makeup or the sponge or the blending foam, and just darkening it. And that's just bringing out the grunge and the texture even more, and I love it. So this is a good vintage background, and you could go from here and do anything on that background. So if you don't like the rest of it, just do the first part. Now I have this stamp from Woodware Stamps, and it has a lot of elements in it, and basically that is what I'm going to use as my stamp. That is the picture on my stamp, and I'm going to stamp it on here. And you could be saying, but Karen, I don't have that stamp, so how could I duplicate this? At the end of the video, I am going to show you how you can create your own stamp setting using what you already have in your stash. So be sure to stay to the end of the video, because I've given some bonus tutorial. So I'm taking black acrylic paint, brayering it on my stamp. This is on a Dilutions stamp platform. Decide at the last minute to just tilt it a little to the side. Now I have texture on here because of the napkin, so I'm a little worried that maybe I'm not going to get a great stamp. I put the silicone mat underneath it to help myself, and then I'm just rubbing it with the bottom surface of this container, just in hopes that I get a good stamped image. Fingers crossed. Let's see how we did. It's not 100%, but it's going to be great. So now I want to make this look like a stamp. So I grabbed these rulers that I got from the Dollar Tree several years ago. I have not seen them since, and it has this scalloped edge. So I am just making it look like a postage stamp. Now again, you might be saying, but Karen, I don't have this ruler. How can I do it? And truth be known, you can freehand it. It's not exactly difficult, but I will show you at the end of the video a couple ways of getting the postage stamp look. Actually, one way that I like better than what I'm doing here. So again, make sure you stay to the end of the video. So I'm just making sure that all this is dry, because I'm going to come in and color it. And I'm going to use my Inktense blocks. Now these are water activated. They're like watercolor, but they're ink. So they do, once they're fully activated, they do not reactivate or smear. And I am just going to paint certain parts of this postage stamp. And I just take a brush and I have a little bit of water on it, and just like watercolor, dip it in and paint. And that's what you're going to see me doing here. Now in some places I'm going to add a little bit of white gesso to that, just to give a different tone and maybe better coverage. But I'm really going for that watercolor like look. And I can mix colors, I can drop in, smear it with my fingers as I go. And off to the side you can see I've kind of played around with it a little bit, deciding what colors. But because everything is permanent before, I can take it up and wipe it off. If I put something down here that I don't like, I can lift it off if I go quickly. So here I'm just adding it, and I'm just colorizing these anemones, poppies, I'm not sure what they are, and it doesn't really matter. I have some red there, or Merlot color, and then I'm adding some orange, and just making it, and then dabbing it with the baby wipe. That's giving some highlights and lowlights, and back and forth. I decide that I'm going to do a slightly different color for the second flower. And just decide which elements that you want to colorize and what color. And I like using a variation of color. I just think it makes it look so much more interesting and realistic. Now, if you don't have Inktense blocks, you can use watercolors. Just have to make sure that you're not putting any wet medium afterwards, or use a fixative. You could also do a wash with acrylic colors. Don't ever think when you watch my tutorials that you absolutely have to have what I have. I will tell you if I like a product, if I think you're going to get a lot of use out of it, and I can recommend it, but always try to use things that you have and to get the similar effect. So here I'm painting the snail. And again, if you're stuck with, oh, what color should I do it? Go to Pinterest and type in poppy and see the colors, and then try to duplicate it. Get ideas, you know, from designers, from real life photos. And then once it's dry, I'm just adding a little bit more color, adding highlights and shading. Adding another layer of color if it's not bright enough or I don't have the intensity that I want. Right about now, I am loving how this is looking. It's definitely very vintage looking. You know, in part that was given to me in the stamp, but also the background that I have, and it looks like it's paper and vintage because it's wrinkled and grungy. Then I made a pool with some of the Merlot color, and I'm splattering my page with it. And then I want some green, so I'm splattering with the green as well. And that's just adding to the grunginess of it. And there, loving it. So once that's dry, I want to shade around the postage stamp. It's a big postage stamp, but I want it to stand out from the background. So I'm using my angle brush and my black acrylic paint, and I'm shading around it. If you have a Stabilo oil pencil, you could use that. Take the pencil, do that, activate it with water, and shade. And you'll get a similar effect. But I like how this makes it stand out. And I'm going to edge my page as part of the finishing process. And then I decide I want the background, the part that's not the postage stamp, to be a different color. So I grab some of the red, the Merlot color, and just giving it a wash of that color. And then I kind of do a little bit of a dance, putting some on, taking it off, deciding how dark I want it. I think the green would have looked good there as well. But I wanted the postage stamp to stand out a little bit more than having the same color background as the background. So you can see the dance. You put some on, you take some off, and then you put some on again. I love using my Inktense blocks. I've had them for about 8 years now. I get so much use from them. I think they're, next to my acrylic paints, they are my favorite color medium. This is coming together so nicely. I'm very happy with the end result. Sometimes when you start out and you have an idea of where you think you want to go, it doesn't necessarily come to fruition. And today's one did. So now I'm just adding a little bit of shading on the flowers. Again, I'm using my angle brush and the black acrylic paint just to add in a little bit more. Now I have this, multiple squiggle lines that looked like a postmark, when they stamp the letters. So I thought I'm just going to add that, and I'm putting on black acrylic paint with the blending foams. And I'm giving it more than what would typically get stamped in the post office. But I just want to give that illusion, and that's going across the postage stamp and the background, and that's unifying everything. So I look at that, and then I decide, you know what, I'm going to try to put some white as well, just to brighten it a little bit and just see what happens here. And I really love what this adds to it. Now to finish it, I want to add a little bit of shine, so I get my Secure Jelly Roll pens and I just dot the center of my flowers. This adds a little bit of detail and a little bit of bling. I think this would make a nice card. Then I grab my splatter paint and I'm splattering with gold as well. I just need it more bling. So, postage stamp prompt done. Remember, stay tuned. I'm going to show you the craft hacks. But do you love this? I do. So, to get this edge, if you don't have a ruler like this, and you don't want to freehand it, I'm going to show you a couple ways of getting that. Now I'm not being overly precise here. Now what I'm using is something that came in junk mail, and this is thicker cardboard, but you could use tag board, you could use a tag, old file folders, and I'm using my hole punch, and I'm just hole punching along the way, kind of just eyeballing it and going. And I want to do two sides of this. Now if you want to be more precise, you can draw yourself a guideline like you see me doing here, and then use the hole punch up to that point. I am not precise, and you know what, in the end it looks great. You don't have to be overly worried about it at all. And then what you need to do, just like I did if I had the stamped image in there, instead of using the ruler, I would use this template that I made with hole punch. And here I'm taking the Posca pan and just going around. I like having the corner there because that just makes it easy to make a nice neat corner. And look at the beautiful effect. You'll see that closer up in a minute. And again, I am tracing this, but I am not being careful. And so you have that stamp, and that would fit perfectly in there like that. And you can use that template to make any size postage stamp, big or small. So if you want to get that stamp, look at the stamps that you have. Pretty much anything can go on the postage stamp. You can go vintage like I did, you know, so I have that sunflower. I think a crown would look good on here as one of the motifs, maybe two. Any stamp you have can be used on here. And if you want ideas for how to design postage stamps, go to Pinterest. So there's a lot of the Tim Holtz things work for here. Let's look at this one. We've got butterflies, flowers, you know, little animals. We've got grunge letters, vision chart, text, script. So what you want to do is look through your stamps and pull things that are similar to what you like, what you see, and then use them. Script. Here are words. This is called faded type. That is almost identical to what was on that original stamp. We've got script, text. Now you might want to get a postal one. Tim Holtz has one. This one's from Bo Bunny. I've had it for years. Has a lot of those elements. Butterflies are great. So I picked out, you know, close to a dozen different stamps. So we're just going to create a couple. I've sped this up. Here I put some script. I'm going to put the crown. I'm thinking, I'm going to put a couple crowns on here. Oop. I'm going fast. I'm not being careful, and I'm not being precise. I'm just giving you an idea that you can use your own stamps to create a similar effect as that pre-made stamp from Woodware. And there we go. I'm ready to be colorized. Now this, I actually went to supercoloring.com and typed in postage stamp, and I got these templates. So if you don't want to do the hole punch thing or do it by raw hand, here's another way. So we have this floral thing from Tim Holtz, and I'm just stamping that as the image. This is some echinaceas here. The other one I believe is a poppy. This is faded type. And I'm just grunging it up. Now, if I was doing this, I would be masking off around the edges so it doesn't go past the postage stamp, because that would be right on my page. Because it was not fun cutting that out, going, you know, all those little ups and downs. So I'm just pulling all the different elements from different stamp sets and just using them You know, you can play around with this, and then when you find one that you like, that's what can go on the page, or that's what you can make lots of. But you got to experiment and see what you like. Not everything's going to work out, and that's okay. I'm also stamping this on raw paper. I haven't colored it. I would be doing this right on the page. Now, if you cut it out, it's kind of a big job. I hate fussy cutting. Then you want to edge it. So that you grunge it up a little bit more, just like you see me doing here. But I realize you can also do collage elements. This is a piece of lavender that I cut from a napkin. I'm peeling off the excess layers, and you can just use that and other collage elements to create your postage stamp. So there's another option. This one just happened to be sitting on my table, so I grabbed it. But I have lots of napkins that have smaller flowers, butterflies, that I could totally use to make a whole series of postage stamps. So I'm just using, again, various ones from various kits. So here's, I've gone over. What I would do if I was preventing that, if I had that on there, is just put a piece of tape, and then once you stamp over it, you can lift up the tape and you have a clean edge, and you don't have to cut it. So here are the postage stamps that I created using a whole bunch of the stamps in my stash. And I'm sure that you have stamps, stencils, collage items that you can use to create beautiful postage stamps with. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. Tell your crafty friends. Go get creative.